Hello and welcome back. So in this lecture, we are going to handle another type of request which is coming to a missing resource. Now what do I mean by that? So let's go to Postman, and currently in our Express application, we are already handling any request coming to an invalid route. So for example, if I try to make a request to this URL, for this URL, we have not defined any route in our Express application. So if I send a request, in that case, that will be handled. And in the response, we will receive this 404 not found response with this message, cannot find the resource. Now, in the same way, we can also have a scenario where a resource exists, a route exists, but for that route, we are passing some invalid data. So for example, if I go to this get hotel by ID request, here, this get hotel by ID request is also expecting a route parameter value. And here we are passing an ID value for the ID route parameter. And using this ID value in our Express application in the hotels controller, we have this get by ID route handler function. So it is going to read that ID value, and based on that, it is going to find a hotel document from the collection, and it is going to return that hotel document. So here, if I make this request, in the response, we are going to receive a hotel document, and the response is 200 OK. But here, if I pass an invalid ID, for example, if I change the last two characters of the ID, maybe to 76, and if I make this request, it is possible that with this ID, we do not have any document in the collection. So in that case, since the requested document is not found, we are expecting a 404 not found response. But here, if I send the request and if the document is not found with this ID, we are still receiving this 200 OK response from the Express application. And in the status, you will see that status is success and the value for the hotel is null. Now, why it is null? That's because here, this findById method, it is going to find a document in the hotels collection based on the past ID. So this ID we are reading from the route parameter. So using this ID, it is going to find a document in the hotels collection. If the document is found, that document will be returned by this findById method and it will be assigned to this hotel variable. But if no document is found with that ID, in that case, this findById is going to return null. So in that case, this hotel will be assigned with null. And that's why in the result, you will see that hotel is null. Because with this ID, there was no hotel document in the hotels collection. So in that case, findById method returned null and that was assigned to the hotel variable. Okay, so now what we are going to do is, before sending the response, in here, we are going to check if this hotel exists. So if this hotel contains a valid hotel document. If it does not, so here I'm going to use this not operator. So remember that null is a falsy value in JavaScript. So here when I'm passing hotel, basically I'm passing false. And on that false, I'm using this not operator. So it is going to make this expression as true. So here I'm saying if the hotel is null, in that case, we know that the hotel with the given ID was not found. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new error object using our custom error class, the AppError class. So let's use this AppError class. Here, first I'm going to pass a value for the message parameter, and here I will say the hotel with given ID is not found. And in the status code, so here I want to send a 404 not found status code whenever a hotel with a given ID is not found. So here for the status code, I will pass 404. So using our AppError class, we are creating an error object here. There, this will be the message, this will be the status code, and the status value will be fail. Because if you remember, in the AppError class, we are checking if the status code is greater than or equal to 400 and less than 500. In that case, we are setting it to fail. Otherwise, we are setting it to error. Here, the status code is greater than 400 and less than 500. So in that case, the status of this error will be fail. And now, from here, I'm going to call the Global Error Handling Middleware. So I'm going to use this next function if I don't pass any argument to this next function, it will call the next middleware in the stack. But if I pass an argument, in this case, this error object to this next function, it is going to skip all the middlewares in the stack and it is directly going to call the global error handling middleware. So now here, remember that if a hotel document is found, in that case, this if condition will not run and this response will be sent to the client. But if a hotel document with a given ID is not found, this hotel will be null and in that case, this if statement will be executed. And from here, we are calling the middleware in. And a very important point to remember here is once this if statement is executed, we do not want to execute this code to send a response again. So from here, after this if statement is executed and it has called the global error handling middleware, we are going to return from this function. All right. With this, if I save the changes and if we go back to Postman, and now when I try to make a request here to get a hotel document with a given ID, but with that ID, if the hotel document is not found, we should get a 404 response. If I send this request, you see, now we are getting a 404 response. And in the message, you can see it says the hotel with given ID is not found and the status is fail. But here, if I specify a proper ID, an ID with which we have a document in the collection, in that case, we should get that document in the result, in the response. So this is working as expected. Now, let's go to this update hotel request. And there also, we are using the ID of the hotel document in order to update it. Right. So here, if I specify an ID with which we have a document, then the document will be updated. In this case, if I try to update the document with value 220 for the cheapest price or 200 for the cheapest price, since with this ID we have a document in the collection, if I send this request, that document is updated and we have received the updated document in the result. So here you can see cheapest price has been updated to 200. But here again, if I pass some invalid ID with which we do not have a document, so again, I'll change the last two digits here, 2 characters for the ID. And if I send this request, in this case, the document with this ID will not be found. And in that case, let's go to this update method. So in that case, this find one and update method will not be able to find a document and update it. And in that case, this find one and update will return us null. Okay, so the error message which you are seeing here, it says cannot read properties of null. That's because here this find one and update method, it tried to find a document and update it. But since the document was not found with the given ID, it returned null. So this updated hotel, it was assigned with null. Now, after this update route handler function has executed, after that, we have also created a post query middleware. So if I go to hotels model, there we have also created a post query middleware for find one and update. And in there, on the document, so here remember that since the document was not found, this find one and update return null. So this updated hotel, it is assigned with null. And on that null, so this doc will be assigned with that document. And since it is null, on that null, we are trying to access the name property. And that's why we are seeing this error. Okay. So what I'll do is here, I'm also going to use this question mark like this. And here also a question mark like this. All right. With this, let's save the changes. Let's go to Postman and let's see if this issue is resolved or not. So you see, now we are getting 200 OK from this update route handler function. And in the response, you will see that status is success, but we have not received any updated hotel in the response. So here also, I'm going to write the same logic. So I'm going to copy this if statement from here. And I'm going to write the same logic. So here, this find one and update. If it finds a document with a given ID, it will update it. But if it does not find a document with a given ID, in that case, it is going to return null. So we are going to check before sending this response. We are going to check if this updated hotel, if it is null, in that case, we want to send this response to the client. Okay, if I save the changes here, and now if I go to Postman and if I try to update a document with an invalid ID, this time we should get that error in the response. So now it says the hotel with given ID is not found, and we also have this 404 status code. So for update also, now it is working. And same thing I'm going to do for delete. So for delete also, this find by ID and delete, it is going to return the deleted document if the document with that ID is found. Otherwise, it is going to return null. So here, let me create a variable and let's call it as hotel to delete. And then let's write this if statement. And here we need to check for hotel to delete. So if it is null, in that case, we will send this 404 error response to the client. Otherwise, if the hotel with the given ID is found, it will be deleted, and to the client, we are going to send this response. And let's save the changes here. All right, so now some of you might say that in getAll hotels, so here we have this getAll route handler function from where we are sending all the hotels to the client, or we are sending the filtered hotels to the client, or we can also send hotels in pagination. So some of you might say that in this route also there can be a scenario where if the client has sent a page number for which we do not have any records to show, shouldn't we handle that using a 404 not found error? Or when the user has specified some filter criteria, and with that filter criteria, if no document is found, in that case also, this getAll route handler function is going to return an empty array. So in that case also, shouldn't we handle it using 404 not found response? Well, no. That's because when such request is received, there is nothing wrong with the request. These scenarios are not counted as error. In that case, the request was correctly received with the valid data, and find query searched for the hotels in the database and it found exactly 0 records. And so those 0 records we should be sending in the response along with 200 status code. And that's because again, there was not any actual error that has occurred. Of course, if there is some problem with the database, let's say the database server is not up and running, in that case also find query will not be able to find any document. But in that case, there is an actual error that has occurred. So the connection to the database was not established. So in that case, Mongoose will throw an error and it will be handled by the Global Error Handling Middleware. We do not have to do anything in that case. So that's why we are not writing any such code inside this getAll route handler function. And this is all I wanted to cover in this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.